Have you ever imagined how a dog could change a life beyond just loyalty? Today, we're diving into the true story of an autistic boy and his extraordinary companion. Alex was born on a bright, hopeful morning in early June, a blessing that Crystal and Lucas, too young, had waited for with eager hearts. His cries echoed softly in the sterile hospital room, his tiny fists clenched, as if already bracing himself for the battles that lay far ahead, unknown to any of them yet. The first months with him were joyful and ordinary. They found solace in the familiar rituals of diaper changes, midnight feedings, and the warmth of that little hand wrapped around a single finger. "Perfect," Crystal whispered, brushing her lips against Alex's wispy curls as he slept. He was healthy, strong, always smiling, a picture of innocence in their otherwise ordinary world. But as the months went on, signs that something was amiss began to creep into Crystal's mind, hovering there like shadows she tried to brush aside. At 6 months, Alex's ears became his Achilles heel, a gateway for the relentless infections that left him feverish and in pain more often than not. The hospital visits became their new routine, with Crystal clutching her baby close, trying to absorb his pain, feeling his cries pierce her heart as he fought against the illness in the only way he could, by enduring it day after day. The doctors delivered word she found herself fearing: chronic ear infections. The fever would break, only to return again, dragging Alex back into an endless loop of discomfort that saw no sign of stopping. She prayed, every night, for those little ears to heal, for the soft sounds of laughter and lullabies to return uninterrupted. By the time Alex turned 2, the infections had taken a toll. He'd lost nearly 80% of his hearing. Crystal watched helplessly as her little boy struggled to understand a world that felt suddenly distant, muffled. His coos and babbles had once been sweet music to her ears, but now they were gone, replaced by frustrated cries and moments of tense silence. Alex's eyes, once curious, now flashed with frustration, his cries growing more intense and frequent as he wrestled with a world he could no longer comprehend. Crystal clung to hope, hoping beyond reason that once his ears were healed, Alex would regain what he'd lost, that his world would brighten again, filled with sounds he could understand. But the weeks turned into months, and nothing changed. Alex's tantrums grew in intensity, and she felt the uneasy worry creep into her heart like frost over grass. "He's still so young," she told herself. "It's just the ears. Once we fix those, he'll be fine." Yet her heart was far from convinced, especially after the tests and appointments began. They met with countless specialists, each one inspecting Alex with furrowed brows, nodding as they took notes, their faces betraying concern that chipped away at Crystal's fragile sense of calm. Eventually, they suggested further testing, tests that delved deeper than just hearing, poking at facets of Alex's development she'd never before considered. The medical system felt like a maze, with walls closing in around them, and every meeting seemed to reveal another door she was afraid to open. Finally, they reached the day that changed everything. She remembered the doctor's expression, a faint wince as he relayed the news that felt like a shattering impact to her heart. "Alex shows signs of autism spectrum disorder," he said, then added almost as an afterthought, "sensory processing disorder, global developmental delay, and speech delay." The words hung in the air, cold and clinical, twisting Crystal's hopes into raw grief and guilt. She left the clinic in silence, holding Alex close, but feeling miles away from him. Her mind raced back to her pregnancy, wondering if she'd done something wrong. Had she not been careful enough? Was there something she could have changed, undone? The questions haunted her, lingering every time she looked at her son, knowing he would now face a path filled with obstacles neither of them had prepared for. In the days that followed, the diagnosis settled into their lives like an unwelcome guest. Crystal and Lucas drifted between silence and strained words, struggling to navigate this new reality. Lucas, ever the pragmatist, spoke of finding the best resources, new therapies, and treatments that could help. Crystal, though, was still anchored in grief, feeling the dreams she'd had for her son slipping through her fingers. One morning, with the weight of it all threatening to consume her, Crystal sat alone, holding Alex as he played absently with a toy. She could see the storm brewing behind his wide, curious eyes, an intensity that seemed far beyond his young age. In that moment, she realized that whatever lay ahead, she had to be his anchor, his advocate, the steady hand guiding him through the chaos. Gazing down at her son, she whispered softly, "We're going to find our way through this, Alex. I promise. I'll never stop fighting for you." With that vow, Crystal began to gather herself, piece by piece, bracing herself for the long journey ahead. It would be anything but easy, she knew. The journey would be one of slow, painful progress, countless battles and quiet victories. But for her son's future, she would face it all. And as they sat there, surrounded by the quiet sounds of their little home, Crystal began to feel the first flickers of resilience sparking to life, fueled by a mother's love that no diagnosis could ever diminish. After the diagnosis, life for Crystal and Lucas shifted into something unrecognizable. Their days filled with medical jargon and professional consultations, their nights with hushed conversations and sleepless worry. They felt trapped, navigating a maze of unfamiliar resources and options, each one leading to yet another decision that seemed more complex than the last. It was during one of those consultations that the idea first came up. A therapist suggested, almost in passing, the possibility of using a service dog to help Alex with his communication and emotional regulation. The words landed gently in Crystal's mind, an odd suggestion at first, something she almost dismissed. But as the days passed, she found herself coming back to it. A dog. Could something so simple offer the support Alex needed? Could it be a bridge between him and the world that seemed so far out of reach? Lucas, usually the one to hold firm to reality, was surprisingly open to the idea. Maybe it could help him feel safe, he said one night as they sat together on the edge of Alex's bed, watching their son breathe in the calm rhythm of sleep. If it gives him a way to cope, why not look into it? And so Crystal dove into research. She scrolled through pages of information late into the night, gathering every scrap of knowledge she could find about service dogs for children with autism. She read stories of families like theirs who had tried this approach, the positive effects it had on their children, and the way a trained service dog could provide security, companionship, and a semblance of stability that was often elusive for children like Alex. One morning, after weeks of reading and considering, she made a decision. She enrolled herself in the necessary training programs and filled out the required paperwork, all while trying to imagine the life that a dog might open up for Alex. It was a spark of hope in a life that had felt dim for too long, and she clung to it tightly. The day finally came when they were introduced to Sam, a golden retriever with an unbreakable calm. He moved with a certain quiet strength, a grounded presence that was immediately reassuring. Crystal was struck by the dog's gentleness, his focused eyes that seemed to see everything around him but remained entirely unbothered. Sam was trained specifically for children like Alex. He was there to reduce anxiety, to redirect attention, to gently encourage engagement, and to provide comfort during moments of distress. Yet, as hopeful as Crystal felt, there were challenges. Becoming Sam's handler required a set of skills she had never imagined she would need. There were techniques to learn, from leash commands to using a tether that connected Alex to Sam, something that would help prevent him from wandering off in public spaces. She practiced each command carefully, memorizing the ways she would need to communicate with Sam so he could do his job well. It was exhausting, but gave her a sense of purpose. For the first time, she felt like she was truly helping Alex in a way that went beyond the limitations of medical treatment. Each command she learned, each bond she built with Sam, was a small step toward giving Alex a world that was safer, kinder. After weeks of training, the day finally came for Alex and Sam to meet. Crystal could feel the unease radiating off her son as she tried to coax him into putting on the harness that would link him to Sam. Alex's hands clutched the straps, his face tense, eyes darting around as if the very idea of being tethered to this dog felt like a prison he couldn't escape. But Sam, as if sensing Alex's wariness, sat quietly, unmoving except for the slow, reassuring thump of his tail against the floor. Crystal watched carefully as Alex's fingers tightened and loosened on the harness, his brow furrowing. Sam leaned forward just enough, his nose brushing against Alex's small hand, cool and gentle, nudging just enough to offer comfort. The simple gesture brought Alex's gaze to Sam's warm eyes, unwavering and calm, promising an unspoken sense of security. Alex's breathing seemed to slow, and after a long moment, he allowed Crystal to finish securing the harness. That day was only the beginning of what would become a slow but steady friendship between the two. At first, Alex resisted, pulling back against the harness, turning his body away from Sam as if trying to keep a safe distance. But Sam was unfazed, patient as stone, keeping a steady presence, following Alex's lead rather than imposing his own. There were times when Alex grew frustrated, struggling to assert his independence, his small hand pulling against the connection, body stiff with resistance. Sam didn't react to the tugging or the low whines of protest that sometimes slipped from Alex's lips. Instead, he would sit and wait, his gaze firmly set on Alex, his quiet patience encouraging trust. One sunny afternoon, Crystal decided to take Alex and Sam out for a walk to the park. The air was crisp, leaves rustling as they wandered along the path by the lake. Crystal, distracted for a moment, pulled out her phone to answer a call from Lucas, and in the brief lapse, Alex, unlinked from Sam's harness, darted ahead, breaking into a short, excited run. It happened so fast Crystal barely registered it. Alex stumbled down the small slope by the edge of the lake and landed in the shallow water, the splash startling him. He froze, water up to his knees, but the shock quickly gave way to panic, his voice rising in frantic cries, his small hands flailing in the air as the shallow water seemed to overwhelm him. People nearby stopped, their eyes wide with concern, but none moved forward. The onlookers' hesitation seemed to fuel Alex's panic, his cries growing sharper, louder, blending with the background noise of rustling leaves and quiet murmurs. Crystal took a hurried step forward, but before she could reach him, Sam moved. In a heartbeat, the dog had rushed down the small slope and padded gently into the shallow water beside Alex, positioning himself close enough for the boy to feel his steady presence. With his thick fur soaking up the lake's chill, Sam pressed his side against Alex, softly nosing his arm, calming him with the solid, grounded warmth of his body. The chaos around faded as Alex felt Sam's steady breathing, his heart hammering but slowing, syncing with the calm rhythm Sam's presence provided. The world shrank, all noise retreating into the background as Alex clung to the soft fur, his hands curling tightly as he buried his face against the warmth and strength he found there. The lake was still there, the onlookers too, But Sam became his center, a solid rock in the whirlwind. With Sam by his side, Alex's sobs softened to hiccups, his breathing growing steadier, until finally his arms loosened their tight grip. Sam stayed close, his nose gently nudging Alex's face as if to reassure him he was safe now. Crystal watched, feeling a surge of gratitude and relief as she saw her son calming, the panic slowly dissolving under Sam's care. After that day, Alex's view of Sam shifted. For the first time, he didn't see the dog as an outsider, but as someone who understood him in ways even Crystal couldn't. Every time they went out together, Alex felt the tug of the harness as a reminder that Sam was there, not to control him, but to keep him safe. Each time Alex became anxious, it was Sam who instinctively moved closer, pressing against him, using his gentle nudges and calm presence to pull him out of the spiral of his fears. Crystal began to notice a new pattern in her son, a slow transformation that no amount of coaxing had achieved on its own. It was as if Sam had unlocked something deep within Alex, something quiet and unspoken, but there all the same. And so, bit by bit, the bond between Alex and Sam grew. On some days it was subtle, a hand resting on fur, a calmness in the boy's eyes that hadn't been there before. But by the time Alex turned 6, Crystal and her husband, Lucas, began to see the quiet yet steady progress that had once seemed so elusive. After 2 years of learning at home, Alex, always accompanied by his loyal therapy dog Sam, had started to open up to the world around him. His words, once trapped somewhere deep within, were finding their way out in short phrases, and he no longer flinched when strangers entered the room. Each milestone, no matter how small, was precious, proof that Alex's world was slowly expanding. It was Crystal who first broached the subject, tentative but hopeful. Maybe it's time we let him try school, a real one, with kids his age. Lucas had nodded, his brow furrowed in concern, but he saw her resolve. They both knew the risks, the obstacles Alex would face. Yet there was a kind of strength in the air, a shared understanding that Alex had come far enough to take this next step. So, one bright morning, Crystal walked with Alex and Sam to the local community school, her heart a mix of anticipation and quiet fear. The first few days were harder than she had imagined. Though Crystal knew that Alex's path would be difficult, she wasn't fully prepared for how overwhelming it would be for him. In class, Alex struggled to keep pace with the lessons, the structured rhythm of a classroom foreign to him. The swirl of new faces, the hum of voices, the unfamiliar routines, they all wore down his fragile sense of calm. But even with Sam's calming influence, Alex's frustrations would bubble over, and at times he'd let out a piercing cry, his way of pushing back against the storm inside him. Crystal quickly found herself facing meetings with teachers and notes sent home, each one urging her to reconsider. The teachers, the school counselor, and eventually even the principal sat her down, their faces kind, but their message clear. Maybe a specialized program would be better suited for him, the principal suggested gently. A place where he can get the individual attention he needs. It might be less overwhelming. Crystal felt the weight of their words, but refused to let them sway her. She looked each of them in the eye and said, "I want Alex to have a chance to be part of this world, to find his place with kids his age. I believe he can do it, with the right support." Their polite nods did little to ease her unease, but Crystal wasn't ready to give up. If her son was going to grow and connect with others, he needed to learn to navigate this world. That meant giving him opportunities, even if they seemed beyond his reach at times. Determined to help Alex adapt, Crystal took matters into her own hands, seeking out small ways to ease him into the world outside their home. She began by taking him and Sam to neighborhood events, places where Alex could experience the energy of a crowd without the rigid confines of a classroom. They went to local fairs where Alex's wide eyes took in the colors and sounds, and Sam stayed close by his side, keeping him steady. At first, he clung to Crystal's hand, his small fingers gripping hers with a mixture of curiosity and fear. But slowly, he started exploring on his own, his grip loosening as his confidence grew. Sam became a silent bridge between Alex and the world around him. Other children, drawn to Sam's gentle demeanor, would approach, asking to pet him or feed him treats. These encounters were casual, without the pressure that school had imposed, and Crystal watched as Alex learned to interact in his own way. When the children asked him questions about Sam, his face lit up in a way she hadn't seen before, and he managed to answer in short, quiet sentences, feeling the glow of connection without the weight of expectations. Over the next few months, Crystal saw a subtle transformation. Though still shy, Alex no longer recoiled when someone new approached. Sam's patient companionship and the supportive encounters at these gatherings became a kind of therapy in themselves, helping Alex feel more secure and understood. Each outing brought new chances for Alex to open up, and each time he did, the fear seemed to lessen. Finally, Crystal felt that her instinct had been right all along. Her son was learning, maybe in ways no textbook could measure, but learning nonetheless. She knew that school would still be a challenge, but as she watched Alex engage with the world in these small yet significant ways, her hope rekindled. In the beginning, community gatherings felt like a whole new world for Alex, one teeming with unfamiliar voices and watchful eyes. The first time Crystal brought him, she could feel the hesitation radiating from him before they'd even stepped foot inside. Alex gripped Sam's leash tightly, his eyes darting around the busy room, his shoulders hunching forward. But Sam, ever calm and steady, seemed to sense his unease. Gently, the dog nudged his paw against Alex's leg, as if to say, "He's still so young," she told herself. It was Sam's way of grounding him, and bit by bit, Alex's stance relaxed, just enough to venture further into the group. People had already begun to notice Sam, the big, calm dog, who seemed to always keep one eye on Alex, never distracted, always waiting. As Alex lingered near the edge of the circle, children's voices buzzed with curiosity, their glances flickering from Alex to Sam and back again. "Is that your dog?" one boy asked, his eyes wide with interest. Another joined in. "Can I pet him?" Alex nodded almost shyly, but there was a flicker of confidence there, brought on by the simple act of having something to share, something to explain. He knelt down next to Sam, and as the children gathered around, he began to speak, the words hesitant but steady. Sam lay there quietly, letting the children approach one by one. His calm presence helped Alex find his own, a steady anchor that encouraged Alex to stay, to let the kids' questions fill the air instead of withdrawing. Every so often Sam would glance up at Alex, as if checking in, his gaze watchful and reassuring. In moments when Alex faltered, uncertain about how to respond, Sam was there, offering his silent support. It didn't take long for Alex to notice that his bond with Sam was, in itself, a bridge to others. The kids didn't look at him strangely or press him for answers he couldn't give. They simply looked at him with a shared wonder. There were, of course, times when Alex struggled. He'd freeze mid-sentence, unsure of what to say, his mind blank under the weight of so many eyes. In those moments, Sam seemed to take over in his own way, thumping his tail against the floor or nudging Alex's knee, sometimes even tugging gently at his leash as if to snap him back from his spiraling thoughts. It was a playful, subtle encouragement, but it was enough to pull Alex out of his head, grounding him back in the present moment. Gradually, these gatherings became more than just a place to sit with Sam. They became a setting where Alex began to feel accepted, where he no longer stood as a silent observer, but instead took part, albeit in his quiet way. He began looking forward to these interactions, asking his mother when the next gathering would be. Crystal watched as her son, once fearful and withdrawn, started to see these weekly meetings as an adventure, an opportunity to be with others without feeling overwhelmed. Months passed, and little by little Alex's comfort grew. His posture softened, and his face, once drawn tight with worry, often held a hint of a smile as he spoke to the other kids. He began to share small things with them, thoughts on his favorite books or things he'd learned. Sam remained his constant companion, a reliable presence that reminded Alex he wasn't alone. Each time he glanced at Sam, he felt a surge of confidence, a reminder that he had his loyal friend right by his side, no matter how unpredictable the world felt. By now, it was almost second nature for Alex to navigate these gatherings. He no longer clung to his mother or hovered by the door. Instead, he strode in with Sam, his small hand gripping the leash loosely, a subtle but noticeable change. In a room full of noise and activity, Sam was his point of calm, and through Sam, Alex had learned to see the world as a little less daunting, a little more welcoming. Crystal noticed this transformation and felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. Sam had helped her son unlock parts of himself she hadn't thought possible, bringing him out of his shell with a gentle patience that no amount of encouragement could have forced. Watching Alex sit with the other kids, laughing, sharing his thoughts, Crystal saw just how much he had grown. Sam had done more than just calm Alex's nerves. He'd opened up a world of possibilities. In those quiet, shared moments, Alex was no longer the boy hiding behind his mother's leg. He was a child, with a voice, someone with stories and laughter to share, and all of it had been possible because of Sam. The gentle companionship, the steady support, they had been the bridge Alex needed, the gateway to a world he could finally feel a part of. Crystal felt her pulse quicken as she stepped through the school doors with Alex and Sam, her hands brushing against her son's shoulder to give him a sense of comfort. Today felt monumental, a day she'd been both eager for and dreading for weeks. Alex was ready to re-enter the community school, and this time, he wasn't going in alone. By his side was Sam, the calm and loyal golden retriever who had become Alex's steadfast partner, grounding him through his struggles with autism and guiding him into a world that once seemed overwhelming. In the days leading up to today, Crystal had arranged a small event with the school staff to introduce Sam to Alex's classmates and teachers. She knew from the beginning that for Sam to truly support Alex in a crowded school setting, everyone had to understand his role. This wasn't just a pet. Sam was an anchor, a lifeline for her son, and she needed them to see that, to feel what she did whenever she watched the way Alex's hand clung to Sam's fur in moments of uncertainty. The cafeteria, where the event would be held, was buzzing softly with the anticipation of students and teachers alike. A few dozen children from Alex's class had gathered in their seats, their young faces lit up with curiosity, whispers rippling across the room as they caught sight of Alex standing near the entrance. They looked at Sam with wide, eager eyes, already mesmerized by the large, calm dog by Alex's side. "All right, buddy," Crystal whispered, handing him the microphone gently. "You got this?" "D." Alex took a deep breath, fingers gripping the leash attached to Sam's harness. His eyes darted around the room, his expression uncertain. But Sam was beside him, calm and composed, nudging his hand with his wet nose, as if to say, "I'm right here. You're not alone." Alex's small voice finally broke the silence, a bit shaky but filled with determination. "Hi, everyone," he began, his words slow and careful. This is Sam. He's my friend, and he helps me." The room stayed respectfully quiet, teachers smiling in encouragement, students leaning forward in their seats to catch every word. Crystal watched as Alex's confidence began to build, buoyed by the familiarity of Sam's steady presence. "Sam, he helps me when I get scared or when things feel too much." Alex's eyes briefly met his mother's, her face filled with nothing but pride and love. There were a few murmurs in the crowd, curious glances exchanged between classmates. Alex swallowed, his gaze now on the small group before him. "Sometimes, when it's too loud or when there are too many people, it's hard for me. But Sam helps me feel safe." Beside him, Sam stood unfazed, still as a statue, his big brown eyes never leaving Alex. The dog had been trained to understand moments like this, his mere presence a source of reassurance, a quiet reminder that whatever happened, Alex wouldn't be facing it alone. Crystal felt a lump rise in her throat. Watching her son, her quiet, reserved Alex, stand in front of his peers and open up like this was nothing short of extraordinary. She'd seen his progress, step by small step, as he'd grown more confident with Sam at his side, but today felt different, a culmination of everything they had worked for. After a moment of silence, one of the students raised her hand timidly, her eyes bright with interest. "Can we pet Sam?" she asked, her voice soft but eager. Alex looked at his mother and Crystal nodded, giving him a small, encouraging smile. He nodded back, his face lighting up a little as if in silent gratitude for the question that allowed him to share just a bit more. "Yes, Sam likes being petted. He likes friends." As the students approached in pairs, they extended cautious hands toward Sam, who sat perfectly still, his head slightly tilted, enjoying the attention but keeping his focus subtly on Alex, ready to sense any moment of discomfort. After the students returned to their seats, Alex looked at his classmates, a newfound glimmer of confidence in his eyes. He wasn't just a boy with a service dog. He was someone who had a story, a purpose, and maybe, just maybe, friends who understood him a little better now. As the event concluded, the teachers gathered around, offering words of encouragement and asking questions about Sam's training and his role in Alex's life. Crystal's heart swelled with a mixture of relief and gratitude. Sam's presence, Alex's bravery, and the school's acceptance, all these pieces had fallen into place perfectly. Outside, as they walked to the car, Alex clutched Sam's leash tightly, his head held a little higher than usual. "Mum," he whispered, his voice soft but steady. "I did good. Right?" Crystal knelt beside him, looking into his eyes. "You did amazing, Alex. I'm so proud of you." As they left, Crystal felt a wave of hope. With Sam by his side, Alex wasn't just surviving school, he was finding his place in it. And that was more than she had ever dared to dream. After the introductory day, Alex embarked on a new chapter in his school journey, one woven with hope and trepidation. This wasn't the safe cocoon of home, nor the carefully structured playgroups Crystal had set up for him. Here, he was expected to sit through lessons that demanded more focus than he'd ever given, and to follow routines not tailored to his needs. Crystal held her breath as she walked him to class that first day, Sam at Alex's side. She watched her son take each step, as if the ground beneath him was unfamiliar, as if he were treading carefully, wary of the unknown world that lay ahead. Inside the classroom, Alex clung to Sam, his eyes darting around, scanning the colorful posters and bustling students. Sam, who had been trained to read the subtle cues of Alex's discomfort, responded instinctively, pressing his warm, steady paw against Alex's knee. That gentle touch was a reminder, a grounding point, that Sam was there. It was enough to bring Alex back from the edges of his worry, enough to help him take a breath and find a calm within the chaos. As days passed, though, the challenges multiplied. Sitting still through a math lesson, staying quiet during reading time, tasks that other children navigated with ease seemed monumental to Alex. The pressure built, winding him up until the slightest thing, a difficult problem, a loud noise, would set him off. He'd snap, sometimes shouting out in frustration, startling his classmates. And each time Sam responded without missing a beat, his focus unwavering, his calm presence a balm to Alex's frazzled nerves. With a look that was patient, almost understanding, Sam would nuzzle him or give a soft, playful bark, and Alex's cries would falter, his small hands loosening from the grip they'd taken on his desk. It wasn't just Alex's classmates who noticed. His teachers saw the vital role Sam played in easing Alex's anxieties, especially on days that seemed hardest for him. Miss Lewis, his homeroom teacher, took note of how Sam watched Alex with an intensity that was rare, even for a trained therapy dog. She found herself marveling at the unspoken bond between them. Slowly, she began to understand that Sam wasn't there just for Alex's company. He was a bridge, connecting Alex's inner world to the outer, allowing him to navigate school in ways he never could alone. Crystal, ever watchful, saw the struggles Alex faced, but also glimpsed the progress, small victories that spoke volumes. She worked closely with Miss Lewis, sharing strategies to help Alex manage his emotions, suggesting breaks and activities that Sam could be part of. For every difficult day there was a moment of light. Times when Sam, sensing Alex's sadness after school, would playfully nip at his toy or wag his tail, nudging Alex into laughter. Crystal was endlessly grateful for Sam's instincts. He knew exactly when to soothe and when to distract, a balance that often eluded her. In those lighter moments, Alex's face would brighten, a smile breaking through the worry. It was a fragile sort of happiness, but it was there. He'd run his fingers through Sam's fur, whispering secrets to him, laughing at Sam's antics, finding the courage to return to class the next day a little braver than before. Crystal marveled at how the dog could turn her son's hardest moments into chances to learn resilience, to grow. Gradually, with Sam by his side, Alex's confidence began to root itself, taking hold like a young tree finding strength in soil. He learned to let Sam ground him when the weight of the classroom felt too heavy, to take a breath and reset. Crystal noticed that, day by day, Alex started to approach challenges with a quiet resolve she hadn't seen before. No longer did he feel like he was navigating this world alone. Every day, Alex and Sam walked into that school together, Alex a step closer to finding his place, and Sam a steady companion by his side. Sam had settled into Alex's life in a way that felt almost seamless, as if he'd always been there. The moment Sam came home with them, it was as though he knew exactly why he was there, and his focus never wavered from Alex, regardless of what chaos unfolded around them. He moved with a calmness that brought peace to the boy, a steady presence that let Alex feel, maybe for the first time, truly safe. It was Sam's gift, his talent to stay centered, unbothered by the usual triggers that could set Alex off, the sudden slam of a door, the shrill laughter of kids outside, the unpredictable sounds that usually threw Alex into an anxious loop. As weeks turned into months, Crystal watched how Sam seemed to read Alex's moods better than anyone, even herself. When Alex began to get restless, a slow, visible tension building up in him, Sam would place a gentle paw on Alex's knee, a small reminder that he wasn't alone. That simple touch would ground Alex, drawing his attention away from whatever internal storm was starting to churn. Often, it was enough to pull him back into the present moment before his emotions took over. Sam isn't just his therapy dog, Crystal told Lucas one evening, the pride and gratitude evident in her voice. He's his friend, he's his closest friend. Lucas nodded, his eyes soft as he watched Sam resting by Alex's bed, ever watchful. "We couldn't have hoped for a better match," he said quietly, understanding as well as she did the crucial role Sam now played. It was during one of their routine doctor visits that Crystal received the news that changed everything. Alex is hearing, it's starting to recover. "It won't be perfect, of course," the specialist said, glancing over the charts with a slight, hopeful smile. "But there's noticeable improvement. You've been consistent with the therapies, the patients. It's paying off." Crystal could hardly believe it. The words felt surreal, their impact sinking in slowly as she held Alex's hand. She was filled with an overwhelming sense of gratitude and pride, both for her son's resilience and for the unwavering dedication of their family. Alex had endured so much at such a young age, and Sam's presence had been a vital part of his journey, helping him face each obstacle with just a little less fear. As Alex's hearing improved, Crystal noticed other changes too. Alex had started to respond to sounds with a new alertness, his eyes brightening at the laughter of children nearby or the chirping of birds he once couldn't hear. While he still struggled in noisy environments, he seemed more eager to engage, asking questions and expressing curiosity about the world around him. It was as if a door had been cracked open, allowing him a glimpse of the life that had been just out of reach. There was one afternoon sitting on their front porch that Crystal caught a glimpse of just how far they'd come. Alex was perched on the steps, his fingers brushing Sam's fur while he stared intently at a ladybug crawling on the wood. He looked up suddenly, his expression calm, yet curious, and asked, "Mom, do you think Sam can hear like me?" Crystal smiled, a lump forming in her throat as she watched her son. "I think Sam hears everything you do, and probably even a little bit more." Alex tilted his head, considering this, then nodded as though it made perfect sense. Sam shifted, leaning his weight into Alex's side, and Crystal marveled at the bond between them. The dog wasn't just there to help Alex with his hearing loss. He was there to help Alex live. And in ways Crystal couldn't have anticipated, Sam had given Alex the courage to navigate a world that had once felt beyond his reach. They weren't at the end of their journey. There were still hurdles to face, challenges that might push Alex to his limits. But with Sam beside him, Crystal felt certain her son would continue to grow, to reach for the life she'd always dreamed he could have. It was a life built not only on resilience, but on the quiet strength of a friendship that went beyond words, a bond that offered Alex a sense of belonging he hadn't felt before. As she looked at them together, she realized that Sam had become so much more than a therapy dog. He was family. And no matter what lay ahead, Crystal knew they'd face it together, bound by the same quiet hope and fierce love that had carried them this far. Thank you for sticking with us to the end of this touching story about Alex and his loyal companion, Sam. From the days of silence and uncertainty to the moments of joy and discovery, this journey shows the power of family love, resilience, and the special bond between humans and animals. If you found this story inspiring, please give it a like, share it to spread the message, and hit subscribe so you won't miss any of our upcoming content. Thank you again for watching, and remember, sometimes the greatest strength comes from the simplest things, just like the love Sam showed for Alex. See you in the next video.